Hey everyone, I want to jump right into frames. So frames are very important for creating UI in Figma. So this is where the frame tool is. You can easily create a frame by pressing F. So if I just press F, I've already have the tool selected. Over here, I want to just point this out really quickly because when you do create a frame, you're going to see the ability to create a frame based off of a phone size or a tablet size. They even have desktop sizes. So you can create the frame based off of that. You can also just draw it on the board, on the canvas area. So I can just draw a large frame like that. And it's automatically going to say frame 1. I'm going to just go back really quickly. But if I select, like, say, the phone, it's going to automatically create that frame and also create the name for the frame. It will name the frame based off of the type of device. And you can also, select that frame name and rename it any which way you like. So frames are really great for creating content or putting your content inside. So how do you use frames? So if I have my frame selected, I can see all the properties associated with this frame. I can see, its fill. I can, add a different fill if I want to. I can see like its positioning. I can see its size. Basically, this is the majority of the stuff that you're going to basically see with a frame. Now, to create a frame, you can do a couple different things. So say if I have a couple of different items. So I'm going to create some squares. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool, or I'm going to just press R. And I'm going to hold down Shift while I'm dragging to make a square. And I'm going to make a copy by pressing Option. So I have two squares here. Let's make them blue squares. So we have two blue squares here. Now, you can take two items and actually select them and group them as a frame. The easiest way to do that is either click one and hold Shift and click the other, and you can do this until you decide not to do it and select a bunch. Or you can just drag over, and you would select Command, Option, and G. That is for Mac OS. You can also do the same with Control Alt G on Windows. So that's how you group a frame. And that's the easiest way for that. Now, if I wanted to take this frame away, I'm just going to just press Shift Command G, which is actually the same or similar command to which is on Windows, which is Shift Control G. So I've selected that, now the frame has disappeared. So I like to, put frames within frames just as containers to hold my content, and you're going to see how I do that later. Okay, so you may be wondering, you have frames, which are really important, then you have groups, and they may seem really similar. So if I take two items here, I'm going to hold down Shift and do it. I'm just going to press Control G on Windows. So I'm just going to create a group. You can also select whether you want that to be a frame up here. You can toggle between the two. Now there's a couple different use cases for groups versus frames. Frames are really great for, a lot of things. I personally like to use groups for shapes. Whether that's like a logo, because when you do select a group and you scale it, all the content basically retains that dimension of the group. So it's going to shrink within every single way, it's going to scale with it. And that's really helpful for things like logos or little elements that you have on the screen. So that's really helpful for that. Now, if I were to do that with a frame, you're going to notice that this is different. See, the frame acts like a box, and you can have the same desired effect that a group has with a frame, but it's going to basically be a little bit harder. You're going to have to select the items within and adjust their constraints accordingly. So over here, I have the box, and I'm going to have to set it to maybe left and right and top and bottom. That means that when the frame moves left and right, it's going to move with it. So let's look at the difference between this one versus this one. So I'm going to make this one red, so it's just easier to know which one has the constraint set. So this one has a constraint set, the blue one, and I'm just going to move it around. You see how that kind of takes on the same type of movement as the larger frame. Whereas the red one is just kind of sticking there. Because right now it's set to left and top. So if I were to move the left side, or the top, it's going to stick. So groups are really great for basically when you want to retain like the size of the larger group that those items are a part of. So I like using them for shapes and things like logos and those types of vectors. Now if I want to ungroup, that's really easy. You just a Shift Command G, basically the same thing as ungrouping a frame. And for Windows, that is Shift Control G. So Command G or Control G, Shift Command G, Shift Control G. And that is how you create and remove groups. Hey everyone, I want to talk about both basic shapes and Boolean operations because these are some pretty cool things that you can do in Figma. So let's jump right in. So up here in our toolbar, we're going to have our shapes. And we can basically see all our shapes. We'll see our rectangle, our line, arrow, ellipse, polygon, star, and their associated shortcuts on the left-hand side. So an example is for rectangle, if I just press R, I have it selected, and I can draw a rectangle. A rectangle basically will be able to create both rectangles and squares. Now, if I select L, I have the line tool, and I can make horizontal lines like that, or I can make some vertical lines. Let me just select L again. I'm holding Shift because if I hold Shift, I can create squares that are actual squares instead of like rectangles. If I hold Shift here, I can basically create lines that are very straight and not on an angle. So if I want a vertical rule like that or a vertical rule like that, I'll hold Shift to do that. So I'm just going to select those and turn them into white rules because I'm using the dark mode in Figma. And we have arrows, so that's Shift L. So you can just draw an arrow like this, turn that into a white arrow, and you can set the settings here, whether that's like a triangular arrow. You can set like the back, whether it's like a little circle. You can set the stroke. So you can create arrows also within Figma, which is really helpful. You can also create ellipses and circles. So I'm going to press O, and O is going to allow me to do that so that you can create ovals. So you can both create ovals, and if you hold Shift, you'll be able to create circles. And these can be used as they are or manipulated to create custom shapes with curved lines. So you can create like pie charts like that. You know, some pretty cool stuff. I'm just going to go back. You'll see this little dot pop up, this arc. And you can create like your pie chart as you see fit. So really cool. I created like a little Pac-Man there, but really cool feature that Figma has released here. And we have the polygon. Polygon does not have a shortcut, so we're just going to select that. Now, the polygon tool allows you to draw an enclosed shape that is made up of any number of straight lines. So I'm just going to draw, and the default one right now is the triangle, but I can adjust the radius. I can also adjust the count to make like hexagons and so on, and octagons and yeah. So I mean, you can really create some pretty cool shapes just with the polygon tool. And then we have the star tool, which is really cool as well, and it kind of functions very much like the polygon tool. So if I take this, I can, make it a little more chunkier, I can make the radius a little bit more softer, and then I can increase the count or decrease the count. So lots of cool different shapes that can come out of both the polygon and the star tool. Now, if you're really into, creating unique or complex shapes, you can build your own vector networks using Figma's pen tool. And that's over here, right beside the shapes drop down. So if I select that, or, if I select P, I can create these little lines and connect them to create some cool things. You can give that a fill, I can also go back and adjust like the curves if I want to. So if you're really into doing stuff like that, the pen tool is your friend. And let's talk about Boolean operations. So we have the union tool. So I'm going to actually start fresh here, just lower. I'm going to press O and get the ellipse, holding down Shift. And I'm going to make another one. So now I have both of these layers. So as you can tell, this one's over this one. And if I want to make like a moon, I can select both. And here I have my Boolean operations. I can merge them together. So that's your union. So I have these two circles. Actually, let me just like grab a square as well. Like we can make some pretty unique things. So I have my square here, or my rectangle, and I'm going to just pick a new color for it. Oops. So there's my new color. And I'm going to select both and go to Boolean operations. So the union selection. So what this does is it combines the shapes into like a group. So it doesn't matter what's overlapping what, it will essentially just become like a group like this. You're going to basically take the color from the overlapping shape in this instance. Now I'm going to undo that and let's look at the next one. We have subtract. Now subtract is basically the opposite of union. It removes the area of a shape or set of shapes from the shape on the bottom. Only the bottom layer is solid and the rest are subtracted from it. So let's see. So we have like a half circle here. Now the next one is the intersect selection. Now this one's actually really interesting because the intersect creates a group where the shape consists only of the overlapping parts of the layers. So do you see how only this is going to show up when I select that intersect selection? And the last one is exclude. That's right here. And exclude is essentially the opposite of intersect. Exclude only shows the areas of its sublayers that do not overlap. And that is how you use shapes and Boolean operations.